On today's show, we're previewing and predicting the 2026 SEC Football Conference. Welcome in. This is Winning Cures Everything, a college football podcast. I'm your host, Gary Segars, at GaryWCE on all the different socials. And today, we're diving into the SEC for 2026. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is a weird version of this conference. Maybe the weirdest that I've broken down in a long time. There's a lot of questions here. And it's not because it's down. It's not down. It's still absolutely loaded. Like, don't let the talking heads fool you. SP Plus has 10 SEC teams in their national top 20. Like, 13 of the 16 programs are sitting at 70% or better to make a bowl game. Even the teams we're going to rank near the bottom have enough talent on their rosters to wreck somebody Saturday if the matchup lines up right, which is what makes the conference so tough now, especially since they moved to 9 conference games. So, here's the actual problem, and it's a fun one, right? Where's the monster? Like, where's a team that you rank as the clearly best team in the country? Like, nobody's touching them. I don't see that in this conference. Texas has got Arch Manning and an offense that looks like it was built in a lab somewhere, maybe. They might be staring down one of the harder schedules in college football, and there's still questions about Steve Sarkisian, right? Georgia's got the best mix of defense, stability, and a favorable slate, but we're kind of asking the same question that we asked last year. Like, is this offense actually capable of creating explosive plays when the game gets tight? Like, they did it against Tennessee. There were some other problems out there. Like, LSU went out and spent like an 18-year-old that just got handed $1 million, right? They hired Lane Kiffin, brought in Sam Leavitt at quarterback, but they basically rebuilt the entire supporting cast around him. Texas A&M, they won 11 games last year. They bring their quarterback back. They got one of the better overall rosters in America, and nobody's really talking about them like a real championship team. And then you keep going down the list. Alabama might be sitting on a future superstar at quarterback. Ole Miss has already got a superstar at quarterback who took them to a playoff semifinal last year. Oklahoma might roll out a top 10 defense. And every single one of these teams has at least one crack in the foundation that could turn a championship year into an 8-4 year. Like, that's the SEC in 2026, basically in a nutshell. There might not be one unbeatable team in this league, but what there might be is 10 teams capable of beating the brakes off each other on the right Saturday. And as I mentioned earlier, the conference is moving to 9 conference games this year. That means everybody gets exactly one bye week, less recovery time, fewer places to hide a banged-up roster, almost zero margin for a bad Saturday. So this isn't a who's got the most talent conference anymore. It's a schedule conference. It's a depth conference. It's offensive line, right? And more than anything, it's shaping up to be a quarterback development conference. We're going to get into all of it today. The tiers, the new coaches, the quarterback rooms, the best units in the league, the brutal schedules, the race to Atlanta, and yeah, the betting markets too, because, that's what we do here. So, let's get into it. All right, the simplest way I can describe this league right now is incredibly balanced at an extremely high level, right? Georgia is probably the safest team on the board. Texas probably has the highest offensive ceiling in the country. But right behind those two, you can make a real case for LSU, Alabama, A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, all punching a ticket to Atlanta. That's 6 teams with a legitimate path. And then there's the next tier down, which is deeper than I think a lot of people realize. Tennessee is projected to have one of the best offenses in America, sans their quarterback. Missouri has built a real foundation under Eli Drinkwitz. They bring back an experienced offensive line, but they're bringing in a new quarterback in Austin Simmons. Who knows what that's going to look like. I think by now, if you've been following the show, I'm not a big fan of their offensive coordinator hire, but it's Eli's offense. We'll trust it. So, Florida, they got talent all over the roster. They just hired John Summerall. I think he's going to come in and change the culture there pretty quickly. South Carolina's got LaNorris Sellers, Nick Harbor, Dylan Stewart. Like, you got 3 legitimate stars there and a deep roster. I mean, they are over, 50-something percent, 55% as far as the latest. My mind went blank. Blue chip ratio. There you go. Last year, they were under 50%. This year, they're over 55%. So we'll see what that means. Auburn, Byron Brown, Alex Golesh, flipping that thing from USF over to Auburn. They are trying to really get Auburn back on track. Vanderbilt, hadn't even brought them up. Coming off a 10-win season, they're at a point now where bowl eligibility isn't like a far-off dream anymore. I think there could be some growing pains with the freshman quarterback, and you're losing the engine that kind of made that thing go. So, but think about it for a second. Right? The gap between the second-best team in this conference and the 10th best team, I don't think is that big at all. Like 11 SEC teams are projected somewhere between 4 and 6 conference wins. 11. Half of the league's games last year were decided by one score. Now tack on an extra conference game for everybody, take away that second bye week. I mean, it's a recipe for chaos. Like, we could spend the entire fall arguing about whether a 9-3 SEC team deserves a playoff spot over an 11-1 team from somewhere else, and the committee might have to make that call more than once this year. And look, the SEC hasn't won the last 3 national titles. The Big Ten has taken all 3 of those. SEC teams have only grabbed 2 of the 8 semifinal spots across the first 2 years of the expanded playoff. That doesn't mean that the league got weak. The underlying numbers still say this is the strongest conference top to bottom in the sport. Even the bottom-tier teams here would be competitive in pretty much every other league. The real question is whether the SEC has a team built to win 3 or 4 straight playoff games in a row, or if it's just going to have to, if it's got a pile of really good teams that just beat each other up before the postseason even starts. I think the biggest structural change here is pretty obvious. The 8 conference games becoming 9. No new members, nobody left. This ain't a realignment story. It's survival. Like, we're talking about a survival story. The contenders cannot ease into anything anymore. A team could play well enough to finish in the top 10 nationally and still drop 3 games along the way. And that matters a lot when you're talking about Texas, Oklahoma, A&M, LSU. Like, none of those teams, they don't get to take it slow. The 9-game slate also messes with the tiebreaker math for Atlanta. You're not going to have a clean 2-horse race. We could easily be sitting in November with 4 or 5 teams tied up on 2 conference losses, all waiting on help. And we kind of had that last year where A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Georgia all had only 1 loss in conference, but it had to do with strength of schedule, all that kind of, I mean, you had to wait until the very last Saturday to figure out exactly what was going to happen. So then there's the coaching carousel, and this offseason was bananas. LSU got Lane Kiffin running the show now. Charlie Weiss Jr. is handling the offense there. Blake Baker stayed put on defense. He didn't take the Tulane job. That's about as bold a swing as LSU could have taken, and boy, it was messy, and it was ugly, and it was all those things. Florida brought in John Summerall with Buster Faulkner, the offensive coordinator from Georgia Tech, calling plays, and Brad White running the defense. And we know Summerall, like, his reputation is built on fast turnarounds. He's walking into enough talent that this doesn't have to be a full teardown. But it was there wasn't a whole lot of fanfare about Summerall taking that Florida job. It wasn't like a huge thing because all of the oxygen got sucked up by the Kiffin hire. But it's possible that Summerall was the best hire of this offseason. Auburn brought in Alex Golesh, kept DJ Durkin around, which y'all know how Auburn works. Golesh brought quarterback Byron Brown with him from USF, along with a handful of other pieces, which should speed up the install. Kentucky hired Will Stein, former Oregon offensive coordinator, went hard in the portal there. Arkansas hired Memphis's Ryan Silverfield. They hired Ron Roberts to rebuild that defense from scratch. Roberts has been all over the place. He was at Florida. He did work with Dave Aranda at Baylor for a little bit. I mean, Roberts has been all over the place. Ole Miss entering year 1 of the Pete Golding era, with him as the new full-time head coach, replacing Lane Kiffin. He was the defense coordinator there. He's bringing in John David Baker as offense coordinator from East Carolina, trying to keep the speed and aggression that made the Kiffin offense so dangerous. And it's not just head coaches, right? The coordinator changes are a pretty big deal. Jim Knowles has taken over the Tennessee defense. Will Muschamp is replacing Pete Kwiatkowski at Texas. Kendall Briles is now in Columbia to fix South Carolina's offense. I already brought this up once. Chip Lindsey, he's got an interesting Missouri attack to run. A&M has new coordinators on both sides. Holman Wiggins is going to be your offense coordinator, replacing Colin Klein that went over to Kansas State. And then you got Lyle Hemphill on defense. The league has an unbelievable coaching group, top to bottom. We just don't have any continuity, right? Like, there's more upside, sure, but there's a lot of uncertainty, which brings me back to the quarterback situation, because that divide might be the big storyline in the whole conference. At the top, there's real national star power. Arch Manning is the biggest name in the room, closed out 2025 playing the best football of his career thus far. From November on, he had the best QBR in the entire country. Now Texas surrounds him with Raleek Brown, Hollywood Smothers, Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley. I mean, it's an absurd amount of skill talent. Trinidad Chambliss is back at Ole Miss. He put up over 4,400 yards last year. He drug the Rebels to a playoff semifinal against Miami and was really just a play away from being able to win that game. When a play breaks down, he has got answers that most other quarterbacks do not. Sam Leavitt comes over to LSU. He helped Arizona State reach the 2024 playoff. He already knows how to run a high-level offense, and now he's got Kiffin drawing up the plays and one of the best transfer receiver rooms in the country. A&M's got Marcel Reed, threw for over 3,000 yards, ran for over 550 last year for A&M. When protection breaks down, he's tough to bring down, right? And the reason a lot of people are questioning A&M, 12 interceptions, 4 fumbles, that number's got to come down. Oklahoma's got John Mateer, and he was in all of the Heisman discussions before he got hurt last year. Like, he's got experience. He's got toughness. Gunnar Stockton is in at Georgia, continuing at Georgia, has won the last 2 SEC championships. You got efficiency. You got continuity there. South Carolina has got LaNorris Sellers. Byron Brown is at Auburn. And we haven't even talked about who Kentucky's going to have, who Alabama's going to have, who Florida's playing. Like, there's just a lot. Like, middle and bottom of this league, things get kind of shaky. Let's talk about these. Like, Bama, Keelan Russell and Austin Mack. The ceiling is pretty obvious, especially with Russell. Neither one has real major conference reps under his belt. And Bama's only bringing back 35% of their offensive production. Tennessee's got a 3-way battle. I think it's really only a 2-way battle. But George McIntyre, Faison Brandon, and Brian Staub. The surrounding talent is excellent. But there is no experience among those 3. And then Texas is showing up there in week 4, so you got to have something pretty close out the gate. Vanderbilt is expected to hand the keys over to Jared Curtis after they lost Diego Pavia. Curtis has 5-star talent, but he's also inheriting an offense that replaces 4 starting linemen and 3 of its top 4 receivers. Arkansas has some pretty athletic pieces in place. You got KJ Jackson, you got AJ Hill, but neither has proven he can run a consistent SEC passing attack, right? Florida and Kentucky might have upgraded their long-term outlook at quarterback, right? I think Aaron Philo, it may not be Philo. I don't know. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But Philo is the most, he knows Buster Faulkner's system much more. But either way, Kentucky's got Kenny Minchie, who was neck and neck with C.J. Carr at Notre Dame last year. But both are still projections at this point. Like, there's no proven answers on Florida or Kentucky. And that's why proven quarterback play matters so much early in this league. Texas, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Georgia already know who their guy is. A big chunk of the rest of the conference is just trying to figure it out.
Are you tired of sore knees or joints slowing you down? Go Sleeves uses built-in kinesiology tape technology to give you support, reduce pain, and help you recover faster. Use code WCE for 15% off over at GoSleeves.com.
Hit that subscribe button and make sure to like the video. And if you're listening to the podcast, of course, make sure and visit Winning Cures Everything on YouTube at youtube.com/winningcureseverything so you don't miss any of our college football coverage this season. All right, so let's get into the tiers. Tier 1 is small and is the title contenders, and there's only 2 teams. It's Georgia and Texas, really. Georgia's my reliability pick. I mean, they've won 3 of the last 4 SEC titles. They made it to Atlanta in 8 of the last 9 seasons. And that's not a fluke. That's a program, right? They got Gunnar Stockton back, one of the deepest running back rooms in the country. You got Nate Frazier. You got Chauncey Bowens. You got Dante Dowdle. And you got an experienced offensive line in front of them, which really matters. On defense, you got 13 guys who logged at least 200 snaps last year. Like, that's awesome. I don't see a lot of obvious structural holes on this roster. The front should be outstanding. The linebackers have experience. The secondary's got emerging stars. There's no defense in this league that I trust more heading into this season. The one question that keeps following Georgia around is the same one from the last few years, and that's Mike Bobo's offense, right? Can the offense manufacture explosive plays against the very best defenses on the schedule? They have shown that capability. Stockton has shown he can run the operation. He's going to keep it on schedule. Georgia should be able to run the ball efficiently all year, But in a playoff game against another elite defense, can they hit the 25 and 40-yard plays that kind of flip the game? And then it turns into, can they stop them? Because they could not against Ole Miss last year. But that's beside the point. The reason I keep Georgia at number one, the schedule. They avoid Texas. They avoid Texas A&M. They avoid LSU entirely. They get 6 of the projected bottom 8 teams in the league. And, there are multiple people that have rated Georgia's schedule as the easiest in the conference. Now, they're projected favorites in every single game that they play. They're sitting at plus 310 to win the SEC with a win total of 9.5. It's not a huge discount price, but when it's this close to Texas's number, the schedule gap really makes a difference there. As far as an upside pick, Texas has got to be the upside pick, right? If you're building an offense purely on ceiling, like this is the one. Arch Manning finished last season playing at a Heisman level. Cam Coleman comes in from Auburn, gives him a legit outside threat. Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley, they're both dangerous. Raleek Brown, Hollywood Smothers come in, one from Arizona State, the other from NC State. Gives Texas 2 premium backs. And on the other side of the ball, Colin Simmons might be one of the most disruptive pass rushers in this entire country. The talent here is championship caliber, but the schedule is absurd. ESPN has Texas facing the hardest slate in the country, 8 projected top 20 opponents, an early date with Ohio State, and then their final 3 games are all on the road, including trips to LSU and A&M. I mean, Texas could get better as a football team this year and still win fewer games than they did last year. And that's not a knock on the roster, obviously. That's just the reality of the road that they've got in front of them. There's also some depth questions after a pretty aggressive portal cycle, right? And Will Muschamp taking over the defense, I mean, it's just another variable at a program that has championship expectations. There's no more excuses for this team anymore. Texas is the market favorite, plus 300 to win the conference. Win total of 9.5. They could absolutely win the league, and they could win the national title. But 8-4 is also on the table. So that's why I feel like Georgia is the safer pick. Texas has the flashier offense. Georgia has fewer ways for the whole season to kind of fall apart. Moving on to Tier 2, and this is where the conference gets interesting, right? Because there's a lot of question marks here and a lot of teams that all have a legit path to Atlanta. LSU, A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. LSU might be the most fascinating team in college football right now. Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss Jr., Sam Leavitt, they're building the offense. Blake Baker's still running the defense. And they brought in a premium transfer receiver class to go with the roster that was basically reconstructed with championship expectations out of the gate. And we all know what the ceiling is here, right? Kiffin, he's got one of the best offensive minds in the sport. Leavitt's already won big games. LSU's defense is projected second nationally in defensive SP+. The issue could be chemistry, particularly up front. The offensive line has been rebuilt. The defensive line has new pieces. The cast around Leavitt is talented but pretty unfamiliar with each other. And LSU doesn't get much runway to sort that out. You got Clemson, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M all showing up before October even starts. If you win those games, LSU becomes the biggest story in the country almost overnight. If you lose 2 of them while the line is still figuring things out, while the chemistry is still gelling, the whole season shifts before the roster's even settled in. So LSU at plus 850 to win the league with a total of 8.5, that price it's a good mix. It's pricing in both the upside and the risk at the same time. A&M is probably the least talked about contender in this whole conference, and I don't get it, but I do get it, right? It was an 11-win team last year, but the schedule was super easy. Marcel Reed is back. The secondary should be one of the better ones in the league. They've got some real skill talent. They rank 9th nationally in projected SP+. There's a version of this season where the Aggies win 10 or 11 games, and it shouldn't shock anybody. I mean, Reed is the key to all of this. His ability to create outside of structure is a massive weapon, but he can't keep giving the ball away. 12 picks, 4 fumbles, that's too many for a team with these kind of expectations. And the other worry is in the trenches. A&M could start 4 transfers on the offensive line. There's new pieces up front on defense that are being asked to replace some real production there. They also draw 6 projected top 20 opponents, 4 of them on the road, with 5 SEC road games overall. That's not a friendly slate. But they're also at plus 850. And A&M is offering a lot more returning production than Bama and more continuity than LSU, et cetera. It makes them an appealing alternative to Georgia and Texas on the board right now. But you got to remember they lost both of their coordinators as well. We don't know exactly what we're going to get from this team. Alabama is the ultimate projection team this year. The defensive backfield should be elite. Recruiting talent is still excellent. Kalen DeBoer has continuity within the program, and incoming quarterback Keelan Russell could absolutely be special. Like, Phil Steele has actually pegged Alabama as his top national surprise team, which tells you exactly how high the ceiling is if Russell's ready to go right out of the gate. But you start looking at, like, SP Plus's returning experience numbers, you're going to see exactly why Alabama isn't in Tier 1. They're only bringing back 48% of total production, just 35% on offense. Defensive line has got to replace some important pieces. Quarterback has almost no meaningful experience at this level. And the good news is the schedule. Bama doesn't face a top 20 opponent until week 6, which does buy either Russell or Mack time to grow into that job. The bad news is 5 SEC road games are waiting on the back half. At plus 850 and 8.5 wins, it's not a clean edge. Like, the range of outcomes is too wide to feel good about either side. Bama could be right back in the playoff, or they could spend the whole year looking like a supremely talented team that is maybe still a season away, because they got a lot of young talent right now. Ole Miss, I've got them at number 6 here. One of the highest weekly floors in this league, purely because Trinidad Chambliss can bail out a broken play better than anybody. He's almost won, not almost, he has already won playoff games. Keywan Lacey back at running back, that's awesome. Joshua Dye, Mekhi Frazier adds depth behind him. Golding got credibility after last season, and John David Baker should keep that offensive tempo humming. But there are certainly questions, right? You're losing Kiffin. You're losing a lot of faces. Can the new receiver room replace what walked out the door? Like, does the secondary hold up? How clean is the transition after Kiffin? And honestly, how many coin flip games can one team survive in a single season? Like, Ole Miss has 8 games projected inside one possession this year. They play Louisville out of conference right out of the gate. They travel to Florida. They travel to Texas. They travel to Oklahoma. Like, this could be a legit top 15 power rank team and still finish 7-5. Ole Miss sits at plus 1,000 to win the league, and they've got a 7.5 win total. Yeah, I mean, the upside is real, but the volatility could certainly be there. And then as far as our last dark horse Tier 2 team, Oklahoma might be the most dangerous team in this whole second tier. Like, this is more than likely a top 10 defense. Brent Venables has got the program with a real identity right now. Taylor Ween, David Stone, Kip Lewis, the Bowen defensive backs give Oklahoma some really high-end talent at just about every single level. John Mateer back at quarterback. The offensive line has got more continuity. The receiver room should be deeper than last year. Like, if they can get a functional run game going, this offense doesn't have to be spectacular. It's just got to stop putting the defense in bad spots. And I think the biggest concern here is probably Mateer's durability, right? He's aggressive. He plays a physical style. Oklahoma cannot afford to lose him for any stretch of the schedule. They travel to Michigan in week 2, Georgia in week 4. They face, or they may be back-to-back. I don't have the schedule in front of me. But by week 4, they face both of them, Michigan and Georgia. They face 3 projected top 15 opponents in the first 5 games. They close the year with 4 straight projected top 20 opponents. I don't know if it gets more brutal than that. But they're plus 1,200 to win the SEC. They've got a 7.5 win total. That opened at 6.5. The schedule is exactly why that number's being pushed down. But that does create an opportunity if you believe that the defense is championship caliber. All right, looking at Tier 3, and this giant, dangerous middle class of the conference, right? Tennessee, Missouri, Florida, South Carolina, Auburn, and Vanderbilt. Every one of them is capable of knocking off somebody above them on a given Saturday. Tennessee's projected 4th nationally in offensive SP+. Deshaun Bishop, Braylon Staley, Mike Matthews, they're all back. 5 of the 6 primary offensive linemen return. Josh Heupel has built a system that creates stress on defenses even when the quarterback isn't a finished product yet. But that projection hinges on one of, George McIntyre, Faison Brandon, Ryan Staub, One of those guys being ready almost immediately. And Jim Knowles coming in, he inherits a defense with real turnover. His system has historically improved teams over time, but year one almost always comes with growing pains. The schedule is manageable relative to other contenders. You got 5 of Action Network's projected bottom 6 SEC teams, and then you got Texas, Alabama, and LSU all coming to Knoxville. Like Tennessee's total is 7.5. The range could run anywhere from 7-5 to 9-3. So there's an outcome or a range of like 2 wins, 2 losses there. Missouri has become a program that I was going to say that you could count on, but you basically know what you're going to get with Missouri, right? The offensive line is experienced. We'll see if Ahmad Hardy's back. Jamal Roberts does give him a pretty strong backfield, assuming that Hardy's healthy. Austin Simmons has the arm to create some explosive plays, but Simmons also brings turnover risk. Missouri's got to replace 13 of its top 15 tacklers from last year, which is a massive number on defense. That's stupid. But that's the way it goes in the portal. The total is 6.5 for Missouri, and that's a pretty wide range, I think. It could be a 6-6 team, and the defense doesn't figure itself out, or the line and the run game carry them to another 8 or 9 win season. Florida, that's another one, another high variance situation. Summerall, we know his track record. Jaden Baugh is an excellent running back. There's enough defensive talent to keep Florida competitive most weeks. The longer I get into the summer, I think Aaron Philo is going to win this job because he already knows Buster Faulkner's offense, and that should smooth out the transition. But Philo is still unproven at this level, and Tremaine Jones Jr. is awesome. I mean, he looked good in the spring game. But Florida draws Texas, Georgia, and Oklahoma in 3 straight weeks, and that stretch alone might decide whether this is a legit top 20 team or another 6-6 club with some flashes, right? Win total sits at 7.5 for them. That feels aggressive. Like, I probably wouldn't bet on this one. Just because how do you know? I don't think anybody's going to know what to think of Florida. Like, no idea. South Carolina is an interesting one. Might be the most attractive team in this whole tier, to me. LaNorris Sellers, Nick Harbor, Dylan Stewart, they got a new offensive coordinator there. They've got legitimate stars. They're 5th nationally in returning production. Kendall Briles is, you can think whatever you want to about the name Briles, but he's a pretty good offensive coordinator, and he can add answers that South Carolina has not had. He's a proven OC. The issue that they've got is protection. They allowed 43 sacks and 88 tackles for loss last year. And you can have a great quarterback and dangerous receivers, but none of it matters if the line just keeps getting the whole operation knocked off schedule. And like the protection doesn't have to be elite. It just has to be average. Like if Sellers stays healthy and the close game results normalize even a little bit, 7 wins is certainly in play here. 8 wins, maybe 9 wins. I mean, this team was close to the playoff just 2 years ago with a lot of these same guys. Auburn, that's another one that's starting a reset, but, there's a little juice to this reset, right? Golesh brought in Byron Brown with him from USF and brought in a ton of the production from South Florida. And it gives Auburn an immediate feel for how this offense is supposed to run. Jeremiah Cobb, Bryson Washington, Nakai Davenport. It gives them options in the backfield. And Durkin staying on defense provides some continuity there. The problem is almost every key unit depends on transfers clicking right away. Auburn has also dropped 12 of their last 13 one-score games. That number usually points towards positive regression, but it doesn't guarantee anything. Like the mid-season run that they've got, Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, like that's going to tell us whether Auburn has actually turned a corner. And I'm tossing Vanderbilt into the bowl hopefuls, into the tier 3 here, because they do deserve some respect here. Clark Lee has built a real SEC program. They won 10 games last year. They legitimately changed the expectation around Nashville, and that is a good problem to have. But this year's team is replacing Diego Pavia. I mentioned earlier 4 starting linemen, 3 of the top 4 receivers, most of the defensive front. I mean, it is a lot of turnover at once. And Jared Curtis might eventually be the best quarterback in this league. He is outstanding. But he is a freshman coming into the SEC with a roster that is not as good as everybody else's. Like, nobody should expect him to instantly replace everything that Pavia gave the team, especially with so much else changing around him. The total has moved to 5.5, which is, I think, a lot more reasonable than a 6.5 would have been. Now, as far as the Tier 4 here, you got Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. Kentucky has the most immediate upside of the three. Will Stein modernizing the offense. Kenny Minchie's got intriguing tools. C.J. Baxter, Javante Barnes. That's some real juice in the backfield with, a pretty physically impressive excuse me. I knew that was coming. A pretty physically impressive group of offensive line transfers that are added on top. Kentucky could start 12 to 15 transfers this fall. That's the kind of number that either produces fast improvement or 2 months of learning how to play together on the fly. And the schedule is one of the 10 hardest in the country. Win total set at 4.5. Like, okay. I see where they're going here. But considering one of their non-conference games is Louisville, there's not a lot of gimmies on the schedule. Mississippi State, that is an interesting one. Interesting young arm there with Camario Taylor. Brought back Zach Arnett to run the defense. 6 of the top 7 offensive linemen are gone, and the Bulldogs open a stretch of 6 straight projected top 25 opponents starting in week 3. That's a brutal way to develop a young quarterback. Their total is also at 4.5. I wouldn't touch the under at the number, but if you can find a 5.5, I think that'd be kind of interesting because I don't think they're going to be able to get to a bowl game. But hey, I mean, it's not like they don't have talent, so they've got some. It's just not as much as everybody else. Arkansas might have the strongest positive regression case in the league, and maybe the toughest rebuild at the same time. Went 2-10 last year, lost 7 of those games by 1 possession. I mean, the record could improve by winning the close ones at just an average rate. They could have made a bowl game. There's athletes on offense. The defense is being rebuilt from scratch. The quarterback spot is unsettled. Ryan Silverfield, he inherited the toughest SEC draw, in my opinion. Like, they travel to Utah outside of conference play. They might only be favored in 3 games all season. Like, a bowl game is possible. It's just really tough to bank on. You want extra Winning Cures Everything content and a way to support the show directly? Head over to buymeacoffee.com/winningcures and become part of the community today. Now, the clearest strength in this league right now is probably the defensive ceiling. Georgia is the most trustworthy unit in the conference. LSU projected second nationally in defensive SP+, with Blake Baker still calling the shots. Alabama might have the best secondary in all of college football. Oklahoma has already proven that their defense can carry a program to the playoff. And A&M put up 43 sacks and 110 tackles for loss last season with a secondary that could be excellent again. All of that gives the offensive rooms time to develop without the defense holding them hostage. The quarterback star power at the top is pretty legit too, right? And I've already mentioned a bunch of these names, but Manning, Chambliss, Leavitt, Reed, Mateer, Stockton, Sellers, Brown. They're all going to be nationally relevant names this fall, and that's not even including who Alabama's got, who Florida could be playing, etc., right? So the league might not be equally strong at quarterback from top to bottom, but the ceiling at the top of that group is excellent. Running back might be the deepest position in the whole conference. Georgia's got Frazier with Bowens and Dowdle. Texas has got Brown and Smothers. Ole Miss has got Lacey, Dye, and Frazier. Missouri maybe has Hardy and Roberts. Florida's got Baugh. Auburn has got a couple of capable options too. I mean, it's a stacked room across the board. The coaching obviously remains outstanding. Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, even if there are questions about some of them. But Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, Kalen DeBoer, Mike Elko, Brent Venables, Josh Heupel, Eli Drinkwitz. I mean, it is a league that's got proven championship-level leadership, while you've got new faces in as well. Summerall, Golesh, Stein, they all bring fresh ideas into the mix. Now, as far as the weakness on this conference, and it's going to be the same thing for a lot of conferences because it's just tough to do this now. I offensive line volatility, right? LSU, Texas A&M, Alabama, Auburn, South Carolina, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Arkansas all need new linemen or transfers to gel really fast. And it's the trap that we all fall into. We look at a bunch of transfer additions and just assume it's an automatic upgrade, but offensive line play is about communication and chemistry and knowing what to expect from the guy that you're working next to. Just a pile of talented individuals does not turn into a functional unit overnight just because September rolled around. Like, that could mean some genuinely ugly early season offensive football across big chunks of this league. So you're going to need that defense to really step up. I mean, you saw it last year with Texas and Ohio State, right? 14-7 in that game. It was, but because both teams had pretty good defenses, that helped as well. Quarterback inexperience is the other soft spot. Bama, Tennessee, Florida, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Arkansas. I mean, there's real legit question marks at the most important position on the field. And also, you've got the Conference Central contradiction, which is the thing that makes the league both great and maddening at the same time. And that's that everybody can beat everybody. It's fantastic television. It builds really strong resumes across the board. But it might also be what stops the SEC from producing a clean 11-1 team that just walks into the playoff rested and healthy and battle-tested and whatever. Instead, everybody's going to be banged up. Everybody's going to have battle scars. It's going to be a thing. Now, let's talk some key players here, some key units. At quarterback, Arch Manning walks in with the highest ceiling in the country. I think the only question is whether the guy that we saw down the stretch in 2025 is the guy that Texas gets for all 12 games this year. Trinidad Chambliss is the most proven improviser in this league. He's already led Ole Miss through a playoff run and gives that offense an answer even when the plays break down. Sam Leavitt might have the best scheme fit with Kiffin calling plays for him. Well, it's not just Kiffin. It's Charlie Weiss Jr. as well. Marcel Reed, I'll consider him maybe the most dangerous athlete on this whole list. But obviously there's questions there with giving the ball away, etc. John Mateer needs to survive the schedule physically. Gunnar Stockton needs to find a little more explosive juice in that offense. Sellers needs better protection and needs to make some better decisions. Byron Brown has got to prove that his USF production travels against SEC caliber defenses, and that is a real thing. I had a lot of Auburn fans jump in on my Auburn team preview, and I mentioned the line about how he's not a proven passer at this level. Yes, he has numbers. You can generate numbers. What you can't do is show that you can hit a window against a really tight defense when you've got somebody in your face. He's not a proven passer at this level. I'm not going to back down on that. So, the best projected offense on paper is Tennessee, fourth nationally in offensive SP+, but that number rides entirely on whichever quarterback wins that job. Georgia has got the safest offensive structure in the league. Texas, probably the highest skill position ceiling. Not even probably. I'm gonna put that hands down. Like the talent they've got is just stupid. Ole Miss has got the best combo of a proven quarterback and proven running backs. A&M can manufacture explosive plays outside of structure. LSU has the best shot at making a genuine one-year leap because their offense was terrible last year. On defense, Georgia's probably the best unit, full stop. Fewest question marks out of anybody. LSU is probably the most aggressive group in this league. I've mentioned Bama's secondary multiple times, but they're going to have to fix their linebackers and their, just their front seven in general, right? Ole Miss, not Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Oklahoma has the strongest established identity outside of Athens. And then A&M has enough talent to stay disruptive even while they're replacing a lot of front seven production. Like Cassius Howell being gone that one's rough. Up front, the best offensive lines walking into this season probably look like Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri. Georgia's got the best defensive front in the league. Alabama, Georgia, A&M, and Oklahoma lead the way in the secondary conversation. And as far as special teams, I mean, Ole Miss is projected first nationally in special teams SP+. Georgia is third, and Vanderbilt 7th. So in a league where so many games come down to one scores, the hidden yards there are going to matter a lot more than people think. Now, you can't evaluate a single projection in this league without talking about the schedule, because it might matter more in this year than it ever has. Texas has got the hardest path overall in the country, in my opinion. 8 projected top 20 opponents. Ohio State early, 3 straight road games to end the regular season. That includes LSU and to A&M. You got a 9-3 Texas team that could genuinely be an excellent football team. Arkansas, my buddy Duck over at Action Network, he has Arkansas with the toughest SEC draw, and they also travel to Utah out of conference. Oklahoma has to visit both Michigan and Georgia by week 4. They close with 4 consecutive projected top 20 opponents. Mississippi State runs into 6 straight projected top 25 teams starting in week 3. I mean, Kentucky's got a top 10 national schedule. They're trying to install a new staff and blend in a transfer-heavy roster all at one time. A&M faces 6 projected top 20 opponents, 4 of them away from home, which is a major shift from what they faced last year. Their schedule last year was insanely favorable, and once they ran into tough teams at the end of the year, lose to Texas, lose at home to Miami, and yes, those are really good teams, but, you know, this year you're going to have 6 of those kind of teams. On the flip side, Georgia's got the best path among true contenders. They avoid Texas, they avoid LSU, they avoid A&M. They face 6 of the projected bottom 8, and they're projected as favorites in every single game on the schedule. That Bama game I think that could be a toss-up. Bama's got time to let their quarterback grow before they face a projected top 20 opponent. They do still have Florida State and Kentucky and South Carolina in their first 5 games, but then they face Georgia. But they get Georgia at home. They've had some success against Georgia. So, but Alabama does have 5 SEC road games, and those are still difficult. Tennessee draws 5 of the projected bottom 6, and they get Texas, Alabama, and LSU all at home in Knoxville. South Carolina's conference draw is relatively manageable. The back half is insanely difficult, so you got to take advantage of that early slate. But they get Clemson at the end, and that keeps the slate from being easy, right? There are some real landmines buried in the schedule, too. LSU's opening month could define their entire season. I brought it up before, but Clemson, Ole Miss, and A&M all show up before October. Oklahoma could genuinely be a better football team this year and still open 2-2 because they've got road trips to Michigan and Georgia. Georgia goes to Oxford right after the Florida game, and Ole Miss has already proven it can beat the Bulldogs. Texas closes with back-to-back road trips to LSU and A&M. Auburn, I mean, they run into Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, and Ole Miss back-to-back. That's so difficult. Florida plays Texas, Georgia, and Oklahoma in consecutive weeks. Vanderbilt opens SEC play at Auburn, at Georgia, and then at home against Ole Miss. Like, where these games fall on the calendar is going to matter almost as much as who's actually playing in them. These schedules are rough. Shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. The latest WCE merch is now available. Support and rep your favorite college football show today. Just visit winningcureseverything.com/store. If you can't watch the show live, no problem. Subscribe to the Winning Cures Everything audio podcast and never miss an episode. Of course, make sure that you leave a 5-star review, and don't forget, it's available everywhere you get podcasts. So let's talk about the championship race. Now going to let the cat out of the bag. My projected SEC championship game is Georgia against Texas. Again. It wasn't that last year, but they're the top 2 teams in the market. It's the top 2 teams in projected conference wins over at SP+. Georgia at 6.9, Texas at 6.3. Both sit among the top 6 teams nationally in SP+. Georgia has the cleaner path. Texas has the higher offensive ceiling. But then, I mean, the challengers that I've brought up before, LSU, A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma. Any of the 5 could crash that party. Like, my pick to actually win it is Georgia. Best defensive foundation in the league. Returning quarterback. You got a good running game. Championship infrastructure. Favorable schedule. Like at plus 310, that price isn't a massive discount, but I don't think a 10-cent gap between Georgia and Texas properly reflects the difference in what each team is actually facing on the schedule. The risk with Georgia is still offensive explosiveness. They should be efficient enough to get to Atlanta. They may eventually need more efficiency to be able to win it all in January. But as you know, for the conference race specifically, Georgia is the most dependable pick on the board, in my opinion. All right, now let's talk money. The team I've got overvalued is Texas. And that's not me saying that Texas is a bad football team. They might be one of the 6 best teams in the country. But they are priced as the SEC favorite at plus 300 with a win total of 9.5. ESPN's actual projection has them at 8.6 wins. And that gap it's because of the schedule. Like 8 top 20 opponents, 3 straight road games to close it out. There's almost zero margin for error here. And do we trust Steve Sarkisian against all of the other good coaches in this conference? Texas can finish 9-3. The under hits, they can still sit in the top 10 nationally and still lose the over 9.5 ticket, right? That's why the under 9.5 is my preferred side here, even at a pricier number. Tennessee is another one that I would tread carefully with. The offensive projection looks outstanding. But the quarterback room and the defense, I mean, there's real uncertainty there. They got 8 projected toss-up games, and Jim Knowles' system might need a full year to settle in. My initial thought was this team would go over 8 because, you can just, the schedule's easy enough. They've got enough around them. They're going to be able to get to 8 wins. I think based on what I'm looking at with the schedule, everything I've read about this team, etc., under 7.5 is probably my lean here because I don't think 7-5 is terrible, knowing what we know about Chaz Coleman being off the team and just how long it takes Jim Knowles' defense to kind of build up. And the fact that you're going to have a completely inexperienced quarterback. Vanderbilt, a team whose perception has shifted a lot. I told you about all the pieces that they're missing. 5.5, I think that number is fair enough. I would lean to the under on this. If the market pushes it back up to like 6.5, then I've put on here that it gets interesting at 6.5, but I would bet under 6.5. Another team I've got, I guess the team that I have undervalued, probably Texas A&M. They're priced the exact same, plus 850 as Bama and LSU, but they bring back more proven production. They've got more continuity than Alabama or than LSU. It's an 11-win team with its starting quarterback returning. Line play's got to hold up, obviously, but plus 850 gives you a better mix of experience and price than anything else that's close to that. Oklahoma is probably my aggressive long shot. At plus 1,200, you're betting a top 10 caliber defense and a healthy John Batir can survive just a gauntlet of a schedule. And it's not a safe bet, but if the Sooners get through that first month at, 3-1, I mean, that ticket looks a whole lot better. South Carolina, I'm going to go as my favorite over. They're at 6.5, plus money available on the over. The Gamecocks don't need to be championship contenders. Like, I've told you all the stuff that they got to get right. The line's got to be competent. Sellers has got to stay a little healthier. Close game luck needs to land somewhere near average. And that combination will probably get them to 7 wins. Auburn, they're 6.5. I've got less confidence there given how much of that roster depends on transfers meshing quickly. And I used to think that returning experience mattered. Like bringing in guys that have a lot of reps and all that kind of stuff, that matters. But you're bringing in a lot of guys from USF that I don't know how quickly they can. I don't know what kind of an advantage that is over SEC defenses. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. A few other numbers that I like. Georgia over 9.5 makes sense given the schedule. Oklahoma over 7.5 is appealing if you buy into that, but you've already missed the best price there because I've already got them at 6.5. So You got to trust that defense. And I think I would with Venables. Ole Miss, slight lean at 7.5 over, just because, look, there's a bunch of toss-up games there, so I'm not super confident in it. But Trinidad Chambliss and a pretty decent defense, I figured they ought to be able to. They should hit 8 wins. A&M over 8.5. That's an interesting number. I mean, is it plus money? So, this is a team that at least they have a winning culture now. Arkansas under 4.5 is the clean bottom of the league fade. The regression stuff, I understand all that, but they're the one that I feel the most comfortable in going under 4.5. So, my core positions going into the season: South Carolina over 6.5, Texas under 9.5. I'm going to have a smaller Oklahoma ticket and a smaller A&M ticket, both of those to win the SEC. And my Arkansas under 4.5 is a ticket that I'm going to have. All right, my surprise team this year is Oklahoma. That defense has got top 10 potential. John Mateer is back. The offensive line has got more experience, and the receiver room should be better. This offense doesn't need to be elite. It's just got to run the ball at a functional level. Like I said earlier, if you can keep Mateer upright and let that defensive front reload, good things can happen. And the first month of the season decides everything for them. You split those road games at Michigan and Georgia, Oklahoma then gets they build up that confidence, and they've got a real path to 10 wins and an SEC championship appearance and a playoff berth. My disappointing team is going to be Texas. But I think it needs a little context because I don't think it's going to be a collapse here. I think they can go 9-3. I think they can finish top 10 nationally, and I think they can still make the playoff at 9-3. That would still count as a disappointment for anybody that bet them at plus 300 to win the conference or took the over on 9.5 wins. But between the closing stretch, the defensive coordinator change, playing Ohio State early, all their depth questions, market price is just hard to kind of justify right now. My final read on this conference, the SEC doesn't look like it did back when Alabama and then Georgia stood head and shoulders above everybody else. Like, Georgia is the stability program, but Texas, LSU, A&M, Bama, there's questions for everybody. Like, Ole Miss with the proven playmakers, but there's so much change around him, right? There's so much change around Chambliss and Lacey. Oklahoma's got the defense, but they're also insanely volatile on offense. You got another half dozen teams that can drag any of these contenders into a 4-quarter dogfight on a random Saturday. We talk about how bad Kentucky was last year, but they were this close to beating Texas last year. And no, it's not that Texas was great, but that Texas team still won 10 games. And now they're the projected favorite in the league. Like, moving to 9 conference games means this championship might get decided by health, by offensive line chemistry, and what kind of one-score game luck you got more than pure talent alone. So Georgia is my pick to win the league. A&M is my favorite value play. Oklahoma's probably my surprise team. South Carolina is my favorite win total. Texas is the team that I'm fading at the current number. And the SEC probably doesn't produce an undefeated team in 2026, but it might produce 10 teams that nobody wants to see show up on the schedule. It's not bad. That's going to do it for the SEC preview. Go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to Winning Cures Everything, whether that's on podcast or here on the YouTube. And drop a comment telling me who you got winning the conference. Like, what team am I too high on? Who am I too low on? What quarterback ends up deciding the race? Which unknown quarterback, I say unknown, which unproven quarterback comes out and just takes this thing over? You guys tell me. Let me know in the comments. All right, until next time, for Winning Cures Everything, take care of yourself, take care of each other. God bless college football, and hopefully all of your tickets cash this week.
Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Subscribe, leave a review or comment, follow @GaryWCE on X, and check out the web store,